Hi, everybody. It's Craig and Arun back with your Sunday NFL Week 11. These games are on Sunday, November 16th. We've got a big slate of games today. Just a couple more bye weeks, FYI, and then we'll have even more games to talk about each week. That means more chances to beat the books. How about that? All right. Don't forget, if you want to get in on it, we had a nice winning football weekend last weekend between the two of us. We're going to do it again this weekend. We make it very easy for you. You get both of our plays for just $99. It's usually $99 each. Go to docsports.com/Craig Arun. That's a great way to say thanks for all the work we do and to get you some winners. How about double down on that? Also, if you want some extra plays and you like more than playing just 3 or 4 plays a day, go over and get the YouTube premium levels right here. Click the link in the description to get in. For just $49.99, you get all 3 levels, and that's per month. So it's a heck of a deal. It's about $3,000 value, so make sure you get in on YouTube premium as well. Okay, let's talk some NFL, and we start with a game in Spain. How about that? First game, I think, ever in Spain, if I'm not mistaken. Washington at Miami. Miami's favored by 2.5, total 47. Teams, maybe, I never thought I'd say this, but teams headed in opposite directions, and the Miami team's the one handed it up. What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, look, Miami obviously comes off that monster win to the point where people are thinking the window for the Buffalo Bills are over is what the discussion is now. And they were atop the AFC East, and now look, the Patriots are back. You know, it was only a matter of time before they kind of figure something out, and they did. Now they're back. And Miami's a team here that, obviously beat the Bills. They had a bad game against the Ravens, but maybe the Ravens are just getting better with obviously Lamar. And they beat the Falcons here. They played quite well against the Chargers, only losing by 2 points, only lost by 3 to the Panthers, beat the Jets. I don't know. You might think I'm crazy, but McDaniels might be saving his job. I'm not entirely sure that he's going to get fired at this point, especially after that monster win. This is a game they won 30-13, but they were up 16-0, meaning the Miami defense held this Bills team to 16-0 at the end of the first half, which is pretty impressive. And then look, Allen had 306 yards passing. Tua had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but it didn't matter. And I think what probably has is, look, Washington is a team that's just abysmal. They're 3-7. They come off another loss to, obviously, here this time to the Lions. Having Mariota going 16 for 22, 213, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, just not good enough. And I think you have a coach here who obviously is trying to save his job. He's trying to win as many games as he possibly can. I know the public is heavily on Miami here, minus the 2.5, but unless Daniels comes through that tunnel, nothing's going to happen here. I like the Dolphins here on the money line. So, Craig, as it relates to Green Bay hooking up against the Giants, Green Bay, of course, comes off of that loss to Philadelphia. Now has lost back-to-back games coming in. Lost to Carolina, lost to Philadelphia. Now facing the Giants, who have now lost 4 in a row as well. And head-to-head, these Giants beat them 24-22 2 years ago. Who do you like here?
Yeah, big question. Obviously, Brian Daboll fired this week. Jackson Dart in concussion protocol, so a very good chance he doesn't play. If he played, I was kind of thinking the Giants are the play in this one. But if it's Russell Wilson, no bueno for me. He did play good against Dallas if we look back this season. But other than that, he's just not been good for a couple years now, or maybe 3 years really going back. To me, you have to wait till game time to figure out who's playing. If Jackson Dart plays, I would small lean on the Giants at the plus number over the key number of 7. But if he doesn't play, I think Green Bay gets right big. Green Bay's defense has been good. They've allowed less than, the league average, I think, is like 23, 24 points. They're well under that, one of the top defenses in the league. But the offense is just shake your head bad. I know they lost Kraft to an ACL injury a week ago in the Carolina loss. They missed him this past week. But I think they'll get it right against a defense in the Giants that's kind of struggled this year. So that's why I'd play it. If Dart plays, take the underdog. If he doesn't, take the Green Bay. And it would be a little stronger play if you take it with no Dart playing. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on all the great content we have here at Doc Sports. Next game, Bears and the Vikings. Pretty good matchup here. I think this is an absolute must-win for Minnesota as they're 4-5 on the year. And you look at all the teams in front of them in the wild card, it would take kind of a miracle even if they win this game. Minnesota's favored by 3, total 48. What do you like?
Yeah, the Bears are 6-3. Minnesota's 4-5, and it's surprising, right? The Bears are the ones that are on the uptick, and people are calling for people's heads in the beginning of the year, and now look, the Bears are 6-4. It just goes to show how crazy people are. Oh, the Bears are done. The Bears are terrible. Blah blah blah. And all they had done is just they lost to Minnesota and they lost to Detroit two pretty good teams at that point. And they lost to Minnesota, of course, last time around 24-27. Then they beat Dallas, Vegas, Washington, New Orleans. Had a pretty easy schedule. Lost to the Ravens. Came right back and beat Cincinnati and the Giants. But these are all sub-500 teams, right? And then you have a Minnesota team that comes into this game, losing to Baltimore 19-27 in their last game. But they didn't play particularly that bad. Baltimore had Jackson, who played pretty well, 176 yards, and McCarthy went 20 for 42, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. But that was a game where, you actually had Minnesota outgaining them, but they just fell short. Minnesota at this point, it's kind of been all over the place, losing to Philadelphia Chargers. Of course, they've had QB issues, injury issues and stuff. I mean, the question here becomes, does Chicago get their revenge? And I think they do. I like them plus the 3 here. I just think the news cycle would be so much better if Chicago is 7-3 versus the fact that the Vikings are 5-5. So I like the Bears here. I look, when the Chicago wasn't even playing that well, and when McCarthy was playing much better, right? When he had to go 143, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, Williams went 210, 1 touchdown and no interceptions. That was a game. Remember that Minnesota came back to outscore them 21-7 in the fourth quarter. That's not going to happen here, in my opinion. I'm going to take the Bears plus the 3 here. All right, Craig. Houston facing Tennessee here. Houston is a 7.5-point chalk on the road against Tennessee on a total of 40. Houston, of course, is 4-5. They've had a lot of tight losses. They took a lot of frustration out after that Denver loss on the Jaguars, and they've now beaten the Jaguars. They lost them early this year, too, so they got that revenge as well. They beat the Niners. They beat Baltimore. They beat Tennessee. People say the McNair family is the best family in the league to play for, which is, that's saying something, too. They've got a lot of culture there. Tennessee comes into this game having lost to the Chargers 20-27, but they did play better. Obviously, they've gotten their coach fired. That must make a QB feel real good. Be like, I stunk so bad that I got this poor guy fired, and it's still my first year in this league. Tennessee only passed for 118 in his last game. And, what do you think here, Craig? Do you think this is an opportunity for Houston just to keep the ball, keep it rolling, or do you think Tennessee continues to show that improvement?
Huge letdown spot for Houston. Remember, Houston was down, I think, 16 points in the fourth quarter, came back and won that. They scored on the last play on so they covered last game because they picked up the fumble or interception, I forget which one it was, and ran it back as the time expired. So shouldn't even have covered last week. They had needed that big comeback. Tennessee's also off a bye, which I always think you get a new coach and you have that bye as well, so now they can maybe put some new things in. I like Tennessee plus the 7.5 here. They did play, like you said, against the Chargers, only lost by 7. If they play that good and put a few new improvements in the bye week, I think they could get a big letdown spot for Houston. I think Tennessee can cover this game. Next game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They fell victim to a very hot Patriots team, so maybe you give them an excuse. They face a Bills team that, like you said, scratch your head, lost to Miami. Both coming off a loss. Who gets revenge or who gets a bounce back? Buffalo minus 5.5, total 49. What do you like?
So, two teams that are ticked. Okay, let's start with that, and that total comes in at 49. Look, Tampa Bay, losing 23-28, they have not lost back-to-back games all year long. Okay, Buffalo's a mess right now, losing 13-30. If that's not going to wake you up, nothing will. And obviously, Buffalo feeling pretty good about themselves, beating Kansas City at home, and then turning around and laying this massive egg here on the road. And they've laid eggs, right? But here's the thing: Buffalo lost to New England early this year. They've lost to Miami now. They've lost a couple of divisional games too, so that's going to make them upset. And that was a game where I think it's going to be good for Buffalo to lose these type of games. It's good to get shellacked. It's good to wake up a little bit. And, who is going to be more motivated, Buffalo to prove a point here or Tampa Bay off of that loss? I will tell you this. I thought Tampa Bay really looked pretty weak against Detroit, losing 9-24. That Niners game wasn't as impressive for me. Winning against Seattle was impressive for me. Losing to Eagles by 6 was impressive. And then Buffalo here, obviously beating Kansas City, they can be quite tough at home. This is a tough game, but what I will tell you is I like the fact that both these teams are pretty ticked off. I like the fact that both these teams are going to be pretty motivated, and one of them is going to look for a blowout, okay? And I think that's probably what makes more sense. I don't think this will be a defensive contest. I'm going to take the over here just because I also think the Buffalo only scored 13 points in their last game. That's going to make them mad. And Tampa Bay, if you look at it, they scored 13 points in the second half. But that was a contest where they passed for 258 and rushed for 113. I thought they should have done a lot better there. So I'm going to take the over here between these two teams in what is maybe going to be a high-scoring affair. Craig, Carolina is a plus 3.5 dog to my Falcons. Carolina is 5-5, and Atlanta is 3-6. Carolina, of course, coming off a shocking loss to New Orleans, 7-17. But my prop on the under 4.5 wins for the season for the Saints still looks pretty good. My 8-unit prop that I gave out. Atlanta, of course, comes off 4 straight losses, losing by 10 to the Niners and 24 to the Dolphins and 1 to the Patriots, which that loss looks pretty good now, and 6 to the Colts, losing a lot of close games. But that's been the story of my Falcons. We get close, but we can't get over that hump. What do you think here, Craig? You think that in this divisional contest here, by the way, remember, the Carolina beat them 30-0 early this year as well.
Yep.
So you got an Atlanta team that's off of a loss. You get a Carolina team that's off of a bad loss, but an Atlanta team with revenge. What do you like?
Big revenge. I mean, it wasn't like they just, you beat them in the last second field goal. It was a close game. It was never close. Like, they were out of the game in the first quarter and didn't fight back. It's like, this is a check your manhood type game. Once they come back around, you have this game circled. And Carolina, they had that huge win against Green Bay. Then they come home last week, lay an egg last week against a bad team. So I think this is a perfect spot to take Atlanta. I would buy the half a point to -3 because I hate when I'm taking a favorite of 3.5. But I do think Atlanta covers this game. I think they check their manhood type game. Give me Atlanta Falcons -3.5. 3 if you can buy the point or half a point. Next game, Chargers and the Jaguars. Jaguars, tough loss. I mean, they needed that one too against Houston. That would have been a very good win for them. I mean, they would be sitting at 6-3. All of a sudden, they'd be right behind this Chargers team. Chargers are favored by 2.5, total 44.5. What do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Jaguars here. I think getting beat by Houston 29-36 is a good sign in the sense that they're going to be ticked off. And they return home. They're 5-4. If they get to 5-5, it's going to be pretty tough for them to, kind of make that playoff run. Let's not forget these Jaguars did beat the Niners, did beat Kansas City, and did beat Houston early this year. And that was a revenge game for Houston. And the Jaguars, it took a 26-0 fourth quarter for them to lose that game. So that's stunning, right? This is a team that was up 29-10 against the team that had revenge against them, and the Jaguars fell short. So the Jaguars, who are at 5-4, should be 6-3. Okay, and that is pretty stunning for them. And you combine this with the fact that the Chargers coming off a nice win against the Patriots. I think it's set up nicely for a big Jaguars win here. How's it? Sign up for our free $60 of the premium selections, which is DocSports.com/ICCT. You get free $60 of the premium selection so you can try us out. It's the best way to kind of thank us for all the hard work that we do, along with liking and subscribing and joining on YouTube Premium. Greg, you have the Cincinnati Bengals here, plus 5.5 point dog against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bengals are 3-6. Steelers are 5-4. Bengals coming off back-to-back losses to Chicago and the Jets, but they didn't put up a ton of points. Obviously, they have Flacco there. They lost 38-39 to the Jets, 42-47 against the Bears. Pittsburgh, of course, comes off a bad loss to the Chargers, probably their worst loss of the year, losing 10-25. What do you think here? Do you think it's an opportunity for the Bengals? Did beat them the last 2 times last year as well. So, you have the Steelers with the revenge, Steelers off a loss, but the Bengals 2 tight games lately, plus 5.5. Maybe they sneak inside in the last 2 weeks. What do you think?
Let's remember, my Bengals, the one positive thing, Joe Burrow returned to practice this week, limited. So he's hoping to be back in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So if they can find a way, then they could maybe get him back. But how do you cover up for a defense this bad? Trey Hendrickson, their only player that's any good, is out again this week. The Bengals team total, they've allowed the team total to go over in, I believe, every game since Joe Burrow has left. I like that trend again here. Pittsburgh, I think, is going to be really upset. They did not look good last week. They did not look good. It was it's a good loss. I mean, it's a good team you're playing, but you have to play better on offense, and I think they do so against a terrible. The Bengals defense couldn't stop a MAC offense the way they're playing right now. Take the over team total. The Steelers, take the Steelers minus the points. Maybe parlay them together. I don't think this one's even going to be close. Next game, Seattle at the LA Rams here. The Seahawks are the team, like kind of the toast of the town. 7-2 straight up, 7-2 against the spread. A couple of their losses are like this close, I think, to Tampa Bay and to San Francisco, right? So they easily could be 8-1, 9-0. This is a good Rams team, too. This is a great matchup. What do you like here? I see -2 for the Rams, total 48.5.
Well, Seattle beat them 30-25 last time around. And, Mike McDonald He's a guy that, he's obviously a really good coach. I will tell you off camera my story about Mike McDonald. I know, yeah, I'll tell you about the story off camera. But what you have here is a Seattle team that's won 4 in a row coming in, right? Beating Arizona by a wide margin, 44-22. I like the fact they've won the last 2 games by more than 20 points because I think they could end up struggling a little bit. Keep in mind the Rams come off a big win themselves. That was my 8 unit on the Niners, winning 42-26. They beat New Orleans, Jacksonville, and Baltimore. These 2 teams are about to run into probably one of the toughest contests of the year. I was stunned to see this game at 48.5 because I actually had this game at 43. I was like, wow, this game is coming in hot at a very high total. I think what happens here is who do you trust, right? And I think Seattle going on the road and beating Jacksonville was quite impressive. I'm still stunned at how high this total is. So I'm going to back the under here between these 2 teams. Both these teams come off really high 40-plus point outputs. They're very familiar with each other. And I'm going to take the under between these 2 teams. And it's a classic letdown because they both come off 20-plus point wins in their last game, right? So it does make sense for the under. Craig, the Niners here, 2.5-point chalk against Arizona. I love the fact that the Niners lost to the Rams 26-42, giving up 42 points. Arizona comes off a loss against Seattle 22-44. They're 3-6, sort of like my Falcons of the West, if you will. Always kind of close, always barely losing games, can't get over the hump. And then, of course, the Niners beat this team 16-15 earlier this year. So Arizona does have that revenge coming in. What do you think here? Rams off a loss, Arizona off a loss. Arizona can be a feisty team, but what do you like?
Sometimes the line leads you to where you should bet. Why is this Arizona team not a bigger? First of all, it should be at least 3.5, you would think, but it's not because they do think Arizona is a live underdog here, and they don't want to get too much on one side. I think you have to play Arizona in this matchup. The whole Kyler Murray thing has kind of hung over them. Now it sounds like he's probably going to be out rest of the season. I guess, especially with their record, I think there's no use. Because if you're going to try to trade him, he needs to be healthy in the offseason. I think Brissett is better than what he played last week. 2 weeks ago, he was great against Dallas. If he plays like that, they'll win this game. San Francisco just continues to be banged up. I mean, Mac Jones has started as many games as any player in the NFL as a backup. Let's take Arizona here. The line tells you all you need to know in this one. Cardinals, I think, are live underdog. Sprinkle on the money line.
Hi, everybody. This is Craig and I's 2-for-1 football package. You can get each of us for $99. But guess what? We have a deal that you can get both of us for $99. How does 50% off sound? Probably one of the best deals on the internet. You can get both of us. Each one of our football packages are normally $99. You can get us both for just $99. Incredible.
I think this Ravens team is it's an absolute must win. The Browns are a dumpster fire. And yet I see a lot of people saying the Browns, these divisional games kind of be closer at times. And that first matchup wasn't as even lopsided as the score suggests. Baltimore's favored by 8.5, total 41.5. What do you like?
How quickly the tides turn, right? They didn't, lost the Rams 3-17, and they kept, they just went with a combination of Rush and Huntley, and they ended up losing that game. And then, of course, they came in, they decided to go with, Huntley completely, and he went 17 for 22 for 186. They beat the Bears. Lamar comes back. They beat the Dolphins. They beat the Vikings. They're now 4-5. Browns are 2-7. Browns come off a tough loss against the Jets, and of course the Patriots. They just look horrible at this point. I do think what happens here is they got beat pretty bad, 41-17 last time, and I think their defense will be better this week because they gave up 32 and 27 points the last 2 weeks. I also think the Ravens, they've given up 16, 6, and 19 points the last 3 games. The first time around when these 2 teams met, the game went to about 58 points on a total of 46.5. I like the under this game. That's why it sits at 41.5. I think this one probably gets to around 38. Craig, Kansas City, 4-point chalk on the road here against Denver. Kansas City, of course, lost to Buffalo 21-28. Denver, of course, coming off a not so great win against Vegas, probably looking ahead to this game. They weren't looking that great against Houston either, but they managed to win that game. Denver has, to their credit, won 7 in a row, and one of those wins is against the Eagles on the road. But that was the only impressive win. Denver's 8-2. Keep in mind that, again, Denver couldn't have played any worse last week, so maybe they'll get up for this game. That was a contest in which Denver rushed for 84 yards on a Vegas team, and also, passed for just 136. Kansas City coming off a tough loss to Buffalo in a game they were favored on the road and then fell short. What do you like here?
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's a bad loss, because I think the Bills are better, even though they didn't look good last week. I think the Bills are for real still. I still think they're going to be a team that you're going to have to beat to get to if you're the Chiefs, if you're going to have to beat to get back to the Super Bowl. I think this is the worst 8-2 team I've seen in a long time, in my opinion. They have a bye after this one, so they haven't had the bye yet. So I think they're still a little banged up. I think the Chiefs are sitting on a big game here. I think they've had this circled. I think the Chiefs will go in here and take care of business. I just don't like the way Bo Nix is. His footwork is bad. Hopefully they'll get that fixed. Like, they're doing it with him not playing his best football. He was playing much better last year, to be very honest. And maybe they've put too much in. As a rookie, they were kind of protecting him a little bit. Now they put maybe too much offense in. Maybe in the bye week they can fix some of that. But I think Chiefs get it done here. I would maybe even take an extended line. I think the Chiefs win by a touchdown plus in this one. And they need to. I mean, they're 5-4 in the year. If they go 5-5, you start talking. Look, all the teams in the AFC that are ahead of them. They're pretty much going to need to win out. Give me the Chiefs here in kind of a must-win. Last game, Sunday Night Football. Philly did not look good on offense, but they look great on defense. All those new guys they got at the trade deadline looked great. Philly minus 2.5, total 47 against the Lions here. What do you like?
Well, these two teams haven't met since 2022, so what a great game this will be. You have a Lions team coming off a big win against Washington, 44-22. They're 6-3. They did lose to Minnesota, a game they never should have lost. They were 9.5-point chalk going in. But then they'd beaten Tampa Bay prior to that. They were coming off that big win on primetime, so they had a letdown against Minnesota. They lost to the Chiefs in a game they were ticked off, which is why they beat the Bucs. They're a pretty good, decent bounce-back team. Now you have Philadelphia coming off a great win against Green Bay on primetime, having won 3 straight in a row. I think this is a good opportunity for the Lions to have some success here, right? The Lions, did beat Washington pretty badly. They lost to Kansas City on the road. I think Philadelphia, but then again, every time you go against Philadelphia, they seem to always win. I mean, they kind of remind me of the Chiefs of the old. Hurts only passed for 183 last game, but every time you go against this team, they always win. So, what interested me was looking at the total, which was at 47. Of course, the public is heavily on the over to a tune of 68%. I like the fact that Detroit put up 44 points in their last game. They're not going to do that this game. At the same time, maybe Philadelphia bounces back. But then again, I just don't trust the Philly offense, and I think the Lions get up for this game. I'm taking the under, Craig, especially on a Sunday night game.
Don't forget, if you want to get in on our 2-for-1 football pass, last week we had a winning week. We look to make it. We doubled down this week. How about that? We get even better for just $99. You can get in on it. That's 2 cappers for $99 when it's usually for football just $99 for 1 capper. DocSports.com/Craig Arun. Also, get your extra plays for the week. Get in on the YouTube Premium. This time of year, it's extra important with college basketball, NBA. We've got so many games. We're only going to give out 3 or 4 games a day each. You can get them all over here, all these extra plays, Doc Sports or YouTube Premium. Click the link in the description to get in. Just $49.99 a month, $99 a month, get you all 3 levels. Good luck. See you again next time.